Disclaimer. This story takes place in parallel time and space, and all details are fabricated by the author. If there is any similarity, there is no similarity. Police officer. Come on, take a good look. Does this photo look familiar to you? Protagonist. Is this an underground cave? I haven't seen it before. Is it a hole for any animal? Police. Look at this again, do you know it? Protagonist. Is this a spider? Sorry, I'm completely clueless about biology. I really can't tell what kind of species it is. Police. I can't tell what you're stuttering about. Mei Qian, you heinous tomb robber, why don't you honestly confess your crimes? Mei Qian never imagined that his copied and original tomb raiding novels would be hit by ancient tombs in parallel time and space. The key is wearing clothes. He can't even explain where he was a few years ago. How can this dead end be broken? Keywords of the novel. I heard that I am a tomb raider without a pop-up window. I heard that I am a tomb raider. Download the complete set of TXT, and I heard that I am a tomb raider. Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Oral Confessions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Oral Confessions Suspect Interrogation Transcript, 1, Time. From 13.30 on August 6, 2025 to 19.05 on August 6, 2025 Location. Interrogation Room of Criminal Investigation 3rd Brigade of Shedu Police Station Investigators Name. Zhangyu, Xiaomu. Unit. Criminal Investigation 3rd Brigade of Shedu Police Station Interrogator. Zhangyu Recorder. Li Chen Unit. Criminal Investigation 3rd Brigade of Shedu Police Station Suspect. Mei Qian Q. We are investigators from the Shedu Police Station. Today, we are questioning you in accordance with the law. You should truthfully answer our inquiries and assist in the investigation. You are not allowed to forge, conceal, or destroy evidence, otherwise you will bear legal responsibility. You have the right to make statements and defend the relevant situation, refuse to answer questions unrelated to the case, apply for recusal from the person in charge of handling the case, the investigators, and the appraisers, verify the inquiry records, correct or verify the errors or omissions in the records, and provide correction or supplementary opinions on the errors or omissions in the records. If your answer involves state secrets, trade secrets, or personal privacy, the investigating authority will keep it confidential. Have you heard the above content clearly? Answer. I heard it clearly. Q. We hope you can truthfully explain your legal and criminal issues. Only by truthfully explaining can you make the most favorable choice for your future. Do you understand? This is a notice of rights and obligations, please take a careful look. Sign once you understand. Answer. Understood. Question. First, let me talk about your situation. Answer. My name is Mei Qian, and I live in Building B, Building 1201, Four Seasons Garden, Summer Capital. I am 26 years old and work as an online writer. Q. Is there anything else to add? Answer. No, I have already made it very clear. Q. So you are truly humble. You are a great writer, and your novels have become popular all over the internet. They have also been adapted into movies and TV dramas. Why didn't you say these things? Answer. Does this seem unrelated to your so-called case? Q. Do you know why you were taken to the police station? Answer. They say there is suspicion of tomb robbery, but I really don't know anything. Q. Please cooperate. If you have no problem, will we bring you here? Answer. I really don't know. You arrested me before I even got home, and my behavior was rough. Be careful, I'll sue you for brutal law enforcement. Question. Brute law enforcement. When we arrested you, you did it yourself. Good guy, I can't tell you're so skilled. If it weren't for the large number of us, I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to control you. Answer. I got off the car to cooperate with the inspection, and as soon as you came up, you caught someone. I was just struggling. Question. Struggle. Almost injured someone. Answer. Subconsciously, didn't I also cooperate with you afterwards? Q. Isn't it because we fired a gun? Your vigilance is too high, isn't it? Answer. Nowadays, there are all kinds of counterfeits. After all, I have some financial background and I am afraid of being kidnapped. How can I not be vigilant? I didn't just stop moving when I saw the gun, but you showed me your identification. Q. Can you please explain, as a cultured person, how did you get such powerful punches and kicks? Answer. You know, I usually code at home and sitting all the time is not good for my health. It's reasonable to practice kung fu when I have nothing to do, isn't it? Question. Don't pretend to be confused. Don't think that you are a public figure, so you can be arrogant here. If you take the initiative to explain it, it will give you an opportunity. Hello, think about it. We allow you to consider it, but to a limited extent, do not regret it in the future due to momentary lack of cooperation. Answer. I can't think of it. Don't beat around the bush. If you have anything to say, just let me know. What exactly is the case? Q. Do you have any other professions besides being a writer? Answer. No, I just write a book and rarely go out. You can investigate all of these. Q. So let's talk about the recent news. Did you go to Nanyang last week, which was July 30th? Answer. Not bad, it's participating in a slow variety show, just treat it as a way to relax. Q. According to our investigation, you only stayed for 1 day for the variety show Leisure Mountain Village and left after recording. Where did you go? Answer. Everyone said it was relaxing. The local scenery is very beautiful, so I played a few more days. Q. Where have you been these days specifically? Which village? Which township? This should be able to be explained clearly. Answer. It's really hard to say. When you get excited, take a ride whenever you have a ride, walk wherever you go, and stay at your hometown at night. You should be able to investigate this thoroughly. Q. Have you done anything else besides traveling to relax? For example, finding an ancient tomb, pouring a bucket or something. Answer. You wouldn't think I went tomb raiding. Although I have written novels about tomb raids, I am just a book writer. Not to mention tomb raids, if you throw an antique in front of me, I don't know you either. Can't it be Nanyang who discovered that some ancient tomb was stolen? It has nothing to do with me. Question. Whatever you ask, just answer it. Are you sure it's just a distraction? Answer. Okay. Q. Alright, please take a look at these photos. They were found in your home and have all the necessary items, including Woyang shovels, short-handled hose, mining lamps, engineering shovels, dog-leg machetes, and a bottle of black dog blood on the label. Do you have any explanation? Don't tell me you're just idle farming and playing at home, this is a tomb raiding tool. Answer. These are all online purchases. I have written tomb raiding novels, so I can't even figure out what tools the protagonist uses, can I? So, buying these things is also to experience the feel. Things have never been used, I don't believe you can't tell. As a writer, it's not excessive for me to collect something to enhance my sense of immersion, right? Q. That's not necessarily true. Other writers wouldn't play with these things at home. We suspect you're a tomb robber. Answer. Don't you still collect health tools? Are you also suspected of committing a crime? Q. Mei Qian, take it seriously for me and don't even look at what's here. You should honestly explain your own problems. Don't you understand what's happening now? Answer. What explanation? Because of these things. Isn't it illegal? Q. What about this photo? This was also found in your home, is it a coincidence? It is exactly the same as a Tang tri-colored yellow glazed fox in the Tang Dynasty tomb in western Shaanxi. According to expert identification, it is authentic. We suspect that it was unearthed at the same time, let alone that it was bought online. Answer. This is what I bought at the street stall when I had time, Li Jiayuan in the summer capital. Q. When? How much did it cost? At which booth? Answer. It's been too long, I don't remember. At that time, I thought it was fake and didn't seem to spend much money. There are quite a few such things in my house, and I just put them up as handicrafts to look good. I never thought they were antiques. Q. Who can sell this thing as fake? Do you think he's stupid? Answer. This really wronged me. Just a year ago, yes, it wasn't a street vendor, it was sold by an old lady. She said it was true at the time, but I don't believe it. In the end, it seemed like she spent 500 yuan to buy it. Besides being so cheap, who can think of real goods, can they? Q. To be honest, we have been working on this case with you for over 3 months now. There is ample evidence now that you appear to be a writer on the surface, but behind the scenes, you are actually a heinous tomb robber. If you don't break the law, will we bring you here? Answer. Am I a tomb thief? How come I don't know myself? Can't I be wrongly accused of being a tomb raider just because I have written a tomb raiding novel? What about the evidence? Question. Come on, take a good look. Does this photo look familiar to you? Answer. Is this an underground cave? I haven't seen it before. Is it a hole for some wild beast? Question. Take a look at this one again, do you recognize it? Answer. Is this a spider? Sorry, I'm completely clueless about biology. I really can't tell what kind of species it is. Q. Can't you tell what you're stuttering about? Okay, since you're not saying it, I'll just ask directly. Do you have a novel called Memoirs of Tomb Robbers, where the inspiration and clues about ancient tombs come from? Answer. Novels, of course, are fabricated. You can't just accuse me of committing a crime just because they look too similar. According to your logic, are all those who write detective novels murderers? There's no such reason. Q. The first photo is a thief hole, taken in a place called Baoyuego in Grassland Province. Are you familiar with it? By the way, there are also photos of burial objects in the tomb here. Do you want to take a look? What's the difference between them and what you see in your book? Answer. What does this mean? Of course, when writing a novel, I need to look up information. Repeating place names doesn't necessarily mean anything. Even if there is an ancient tomb there, it's just a coincidence. Xia country is so big, where is not a place to bury people? Q. Coincidence. Okay, the second photo is from Shaanxi province, with a black face. Dare you say you don't know? Answer. Just now when I saw the photo, I had some guesses. When I found the information, I thought it was a folk fabrication and casually quoted it. I didn't expect that there really are such creatures in the world. Q. What does this mean? You haven't seen this type of spider before, it's all about searching for information, right? Answer. Not bad, I saw it in an ancient book. Q. Where are the ancient books? Answer. I don't remember, it took too long, maybe I threw it away. Q. Mei Qian, is it boring for you to just throw away such an important thing? Answer. Believe it or not, this is really a coincidence. I believe you have all checked my itinerary. I rarely leave home and usually write at home. How could I have any time to rob graves? Q. Your travel records for the past 4 years have been very detailed, but what about 4 years ago? Where are you? Answer. 4 years ago, I had a car accident that resulted in a serious head injury. I lay in the hospital for a few months. Although I was lucky enough not to become a vegetative, my previous memories have disappeared. I even reported the case at that time, but I have not found any evidence from the past until now. You should have investigated these things, right? 2 years ago, I was unable to enter the household when I bought a house, but through the normal procedures led by the Civil Affairs Bureau, the certificate issued by your police station and my ID card were still processed by you. I don't believe there is no record. Q. Do you really not remember? How were these novels written? Answer. I have all said it was all fabricated. How could I possibly do something illegal as an honest person? If you have evidence of my tomb robbery, I will try it directly. Q. Mei Qian, your attitude is very problematic. Don't stand up and tell the truth about your crime. We suspect that you have already regained your memory, otherwise how could you be familiar with so many ancient tombs? Answer. You can investigate. If you really find out that I have stolen a tomb, I have nothing to say. Q. You have published 3 books on tomb raiding topics, Notes on the Bottle Mountain, Memoirs of Tomb Robbers, and Diary of Tomb Robbers, covering more than 10 ancient tombs. If all of these were confirmed, have you ever thought about what your fate would be? It may involve more than a dozen ancient tombs being stolen, which means that countless national treasures are being lost. This is a case that has passed the sky. Can you handle it yourself? Can you carry it? Answer. I still said that, if there is evidence, just sue. Question. Forget it, if you want to kill yourself, I can't do anything about it. As I mentioned before, we have been investigating you for a long time. Do you know why we caught you today? Answer. I don't know. Q. In the morning, the Archaeological Bureau of Dongshan Province found the corpse described in your novel in a live archaeological broadcast, and the layout and geographical environment of the ancient tomb are exactly the same as those described in your novel. How do you explain? Answer. Really? Q. Now that you have seen it all over the internet, you are well known nationwide and have a lot of public opinion. Do you still think you can escape legal sanctions? So many similarities, once may be a coincidence, can we still use coincidence to explain 2 or 3 times? Answer. Can I get a cigarette if I'm addicted to smoking? Q. Okay, my cigarette is definitely not as good as yours, don't mind. Young man, have you ever thought about the future? 4 years ago, you were only 22 years old, and we believe you may just be a participant. You now have both fame and fortune, and you are still young. As long as you honestly explain the gang back then, we will apply for a policy for you. You can find a good lawyer, maybe in 7 or 8 years, you will come out, and then you will be clean and have no psychological burden. How good is it to write your book with peace of mind? P.S. After flipping through the comments again, I found that some people accused me of plagiarism, even claiming that I copied everything except for my name. It's really like spreading rumors without any cost, right? I admit that the subject matter is riding the heat and following the trend. It's not right that someone else can't write just because one subject matter has been written by someone else, right? Writing a book has come true, almost being sent into this genre. This kind of writing approach has been around for several years, and is it related to plagiarism? If you really want to find out which book I copied, say the name, and list it on the color palette, I apologize online, delete the book, and close the pen. If you don't have to force me, there will be no less pressure. The newcomer is writing about this topic for the first time, seeking support, encouragement, comfort, and care. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Copying public works is hard to get along with. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Copying public works is hard to get along with. Go back in time to a few hours ago. Mei Qian walked out of the cool airport dragging his luggage, as if he had suddenly entered a big steamer. Glancing at the petite figure of the assistant Mao Mao who came to pick up the plane, he finally felt embarrassed to hand over the heavy suitcase. But instead, he bypassed the other person and opened the trunk himself. But with just a little bit of movement, when he sat in the car and enjoyed the air conditioning, his cheeks were covered in fine beads of sweat. Then he pulled off the mask and sunglasses used to cover his face. At this point, the assistant sat in the driver's seat, fastened his seatbelt, and spoke. "Brother Qian, the production team of Kiran List has already transferred the money to your account, and asked if you have time to attend the startup ceremony. Xinhua Entertainment has called and is interested in purchasing the copyright of Tomb Raider Diary. I made an appointment with them the day after tomorrow. Also, the deputy director of the Longing Mountain Village has invited you to record a program at their place. I have left your contact information to see when you have time." Mei Qian twisted his neck and sighed, "I just got off the plane, I'm tired. Let's talk about it tomorrow." He took out a few pieces of paper. "That's okay." Mao Mao looked in the rearview mirror with some admiration and caution, and smiled. "I watched yesterday's Hot Search many times, and no one expected that as a great writer, Qian Gu could also sing, and it sounded so beautiful." Upon hearing these words, Mei Qian paused to wipe his sweat and raised his eyebrows, saying, "There's so much you can't imagine. It's my first time participating in a variety show and it's on the trending list. It's still so popular, so we should celebrate well tonight." Mei Qian also laughed and said, "Okay, call everyone up, you guys set a place." Upon hearing this, Mao Mao cheered and happily started the car. Meanwhile, Mei Qian leaned back in his seat, seemingly closed his eyes and focused, but in reality activated the system in his mind. In an instant, a property panel resembling a virtual screen appeared in front of me. Name: Mei Qian. Physical fitness 9, human limit is 10, skills: cooking, beginner, singing, intermediate, fighting, advanced, driving, intermediate, instrumental performance, intermediate, 8-pole fist, advanced. Warehouse space: 2 cubic meters, note: almost full, please clean up in a timely manner. Popularity value: 100,7000 points, already meets the special lottery conditions. Is there a lottery? Seeing this, Mei Qian smiled slightly. The current location is not suitable and there will be no lottery for now. As expected, writing novels is damn it. With so much hard work copying novels, the popularity gained in a year is not as much as the previous day's Hot Search. Since we won the Intermediate Singing Award last time, let's go on more variety shows in the future. Sing a song when you have free time, and the popularity of the lottery will increase. My ZZO, but at this moment, he suddenly realized that the popularity value had changed again, and it turned out to be 110,7000 points. What is the situation? Isn't it already trending? How did popularity increase so quickly? He was both surprised and delighted, and quickly took out his phone. I just realized that because I just got off the plane, my phone was still turned off. At this moment, the car under him came to a slow stop, causing a pause in his power-on action. Turning his head, he saw several figures wearing uniforms outside the car window. "Hello, the police are on patrol. Please get off the car for inspection." The car window was knocked on, and Mei Qian was stunned for a moment before getting off the car honestly. But as soon as he got off the car, he felt a gust of strong wind coming, and the originally friendly police officer immediately took action and grabbed his shoulder. Having advanced combat skills, the body always responds faster than the brain. With a sudden raise of the hand, it blocks the opponent's blow, and then the left hand punches and hits the opponent's abdomen. With a muffled snort, the police officer who was taking action suddenly took 2 steps back and almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, it was just a subconscious reaction, without much force, and the other party seemed not to be injured. Dare to attack a police officer? Don't move. Mei Qian, you are suspected of being involved in several heinous tomb raids. Please cooperate with the investigation. After Mei Qian realized that he had already faced several dark gunshots, he was handcuffed to the interrogation room after the other party presented his police ID and arrest warrant. What's going on here? Why is it so unlucky? The interrogating police released one of the handcuffs on Mei Qian's chair and lit him a cigarette. Then he lightly patted his shoulder and said in a friendly tone, "Young man, have you ever thought about the future? 4 years ago, you were only 22 years old, and we believe you may just be a participant. You now have both fame and fortune, and you are still young. As long as you honestly explain the gang back then, we can apply for a policy for you here. You can find a good lawyer, maybe in 7 or 8 years, and then you will be clean and free from psychological burden. How good is it to write your book with peace of mind? Damn it, I'm dressed and haven't stolen a tomb at all. Where did I get an accomplice from?" Mei Qian smoking was not about explaining anything, but wanting to calm down and call out the system again. Sure enough, the popularity value is still skyrocketing. If it were all crazy before. But now, I can only feel the deep malice of this world towards me. It's not easy to be a copywriter. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Reasons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Reasons. Mei Qian felt that his travel experience was simply terrible. In the morning, he happily went to work as his social animal, and almost in the blink of an eye, the road that could have been walked with his eyes closed changed, surrounded by unfamiliar buildings. Before I could react, I was hit by a sports car and flew away. The driver should have a conscience and take him to the hospital in a timely manner, otherwise he may get cold early. After being a vegetative in the hospital for several months, I finally woke up and realized that I had traveled to parallel time and space in a trendy way. This place is 90% closer to the Earth, with only slight differences in modern history. Mei Qian is a sudden appearance in this world. After he regained consciousness, he couldn't explain his origins clearly. I had to rely on amnesia as a way to get by. His special situation did not arouse much suspicion. But the compensation amount is slightly less, and as a person with no past, no documents, and no education, it is not easy to establish a foothold in this unfamiliar world. So, unable to find a good job, he decided to rent a house and started working as a copywriter. And it wasn't until his first novel was published and he received income that the time travel accessory was activated and awakened. Entertainment lottery system. The system name is rough and the usage method is simple. As long as the popularity value reaches a certain standard, a lottery page will appear. Randomly win various prizes, with a popularity value of 100,000, activate the regular lottery, and prizes include antiques, luxury items, and so on. It happens to be used to improve life. Of course, if you have bad luck, the system will give you bread, mineral water or something, and you can only accept it. There's no reason yet. This system is also a 3-no product similar to a lottery turntable, not to mention intelligent, it doesn't even have an instruction manual. As for the advanced lottery that requires a popularity value of 1 million to trigger, in Mei Qian's opinion, it also means something similar, except for some special skills and rare treasures. Well, he comes from advanced combat and the 8 extremes fist. It was quite difficult in the early stages because gaining popularity was not very easy. It wasn't until a while ago that there was a surge in character, with several novels being adapted into film and television, and lucky enough to have access to singing and playing skills, that this bleak situation improved. Truly experiencing the feeling of soaring popularity. Before he could be proud for long, the fast lane of life in front of him turned a corner. Straight to prison. In the interrogation room, shrouded in smoke, Mei Qian looked at the skyrocketing popularity in front of him. In just one afternoon, it had already reached 5 million. It goes without saying that the news of my arrest has already spread online. Just relying on an expired hot search cannot reach such a high level. He just wants to curse. Do you want another one? The interrogated police officer looked friendly and kind. Mei Qian raised his eyelids and rudely extended his hand. The second cigarette was lit, but he choked and coughed. He hasn't smoked this affordable cigarette for a long time, and even smoking two is a bit aggressive. Then, pushed the remaining half of the cigarette into the ashtray. The police officer saw his appearance and a hint of joy flashed on his face. He quickly sat back in his seat and asked in a warm voice, "How are you? Do you want to explain it?" Upon hearing this, Mei Qian straightened up and said calmly, "I have nothing to explain. If I haven't done it before, it means I haven't. What should I explain to you that I haven't done it before?" Bang! The presiding police officer slapped the table and shouted sternly, "Mei Qian, you don't shed tears until you see the coffin. You plan to carry it to the end, don't you? With your attitude, you will be sentenced severely in court in the future, but you need to think carefully." "I still said that." Mei Qian calmly watched as the auxiliary police officer handcuffed him again. "If there is evidence, you can sentence him for years." After a pause, he said again, "Before writing a novel, would browse a lot of information in folk history to analyze the most likely location of an ancient tomb. These are all based on scientific evidence. Moreover, I don't believe that my novel is completely consistent with the true situation of an ancient tomb. You can't suspect me of being a tomb robber just because there are a few similarities. As for that pottery fox, it was purely tricked by the system. It was drawn from a lottery, and if it looked good, it was displayed outside. I never imagined such a thing would happen, but instead it became evidence of my suspected tomb robbery. However, this alone is not enough to have been convicted. He doesn't believe it anymore. Even if the location is the same, there really exists an ancient tomb in this world from the novel, and the mechanisms and decorations inside can still be the same as what he wrote. Although he is a copyist, he still doesn't have the ability to remember the tomb-raiding novels of his past life so clearly. It's just free to play according to the framework and settings. If this can collide with the ancient tombs of this world, he can only I'm ready to escape from prison. With a lottery system, he couldn't believe it and still couldn't get more useful abilities. He had to change his name and surname to start a new life. What else is he afraid of? Of course, he had no intention of opposing public power and was also reluctant to give up everything he had. It would be even better if he could clear his suspicions. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Troubles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Troubles. Captain, this guy's mouth is too hard, I'm afraid he won't be able to ask anything. As he left the interrogation room, Zhang Yu, the presiding judge, caught a glimpse of the captain coming out of the neighboring observation room and quickly followed up. Does he know that our evidence is not sufficient? Yeah. If it weren't for the well-known live broadcast this morning, we wouldn't have been so passive. At least we could have had more investigation time, complained Recorder Li Chen. Captain Qin Sen's face was gloomy and he walked to the conference room without saying a word. After looking at the police officers present, they clapped their palms and said in a high voice, "Time is urgent. Team 1 is responsible for searching for the suspect Mei Qian's friends and neighbors. He doesn't mention his background, does he? Let's start with his usual language, lifestyle, and dietary habits to analyze where he comes from. Your team will focus on following up. Check if there are any reports of missing persons in the local area and investigate them one by one. Previously, it was a secret investigation, but now that everyone has been arrested, there is no need to worry. We will ask each person one by one, and don't miss anyone." "Yes. Team 2, you go to the hospital. The suspect's attending physician, nurse, driver involved, and even patients in the same ward who were hospitalized at the time need to inquire and see if there are any new clues." "Captain, we've all investigated and haven't found anything." "Then ask again," Qin Sen said coldly. "Yes. Team 3 is responsible for liaising with the Archaeological Bureau, analyzing and comparing the similarities between the suspect's novel and the real ancient tomb. In addition, Team 2 and Team 3 also need to draw out a few people to contact the traffic police department and search for all the stations and bus stops around the summer capital to see if there are recordings from 4 years ago. If there are, just give me frame-by-frame surveillance. I don't believe it anymore. This big person still jumped out of the stone. Yes. Zhang Yu. At this moment, Qin Sen turned to Zhang Yu, who was in charge of the interrogation work. Mei Qian is very likely to be a key member of a large-scale tomb raiding gang, and even has significant suspicion of participating in antique trafficking activities. He applied for detention overnight. The interrogation during this period is up to you, don't embarrass me. Understood. Colleagues, the gang involved in the case is very cunning and operates in a secretive manner. Mei Qian may be the only breakthrough point. However, the external public opinion has already fermented, and the pressure we will face will be very high. If we cannot find any clues during detention, this person will be lost. However, don't worry, we need to work steadily and strive to make this case an ironclad case, leaving the suspect speechless. Do you have confidence? It's getting late. Those who should be on duty should go home. I hope everyone can pick themselves up tomorrow and win this tough battle. Alright, let's end the meeting. Captain, what should those journalists do? Qin Sen sighed and said, I can't hide this matter. There are still quite a few people outside now. Just send 2 people to maintain order and not affect normal work. Understood. Mei Qian has watched many criminal investigation dramas before and knows that there is a time limit to staying in the interrogation room. I thought those 2 police officers would work overtime during the interrogation. To his surprise, after he finished his boxed meal, it seemed as if he had been forgotten, and no one came in for a long time. Although it was quiet and the night was already deep, Mei Qian remained completely awake. One is that the chair is very hard, and he is handcuffed on it, which is extremely uncomfortable. Secondly, being stared at by several cameras, I can't help but wonder how many people are observing me. Moreover, he couldn't control his restless brain and was very annoyed. Whether before or after the crossing, he was a serious law-abiding citizen and had never entered the police station. At this point, it is inevitable to overthink. For example, will you let yourself go home to sleep after 24 hours? If there are no clues, will there be torture to extract a confession? He is afraid of pain. What if he is forced into action? Will his studio assistant Mao Mao hire him a good lawyer? No matter how expensive it is, one must be reliable. And, with so many popularity points now, can we draw better skills? In case the situation is unfavorable, it will be convenient for him to escape. I hope I can draw a golden bell shield, which would be even better if it could block bullets. Then he suspected that what happened today might be related to his lottery system. Anyway, a burst of wild thoughts is even more tiring than writing a novel to conceptualize the plot. In order to divert his attention, he could only immerse himself in his personal space and search for the items inside with his mind. Finally found the tablet he had stored inside a while ago, which had downloaded many novels from the world. He casually found one and looked at it from scratch. To outsiders, he looked completely focused with his eyes closed, and soon his head gradually drooped, clearly asleep. Yes, I don't know if he has a big heart or a fearless heart. Anyway, looking at it, Mei Qian really felt tired. Before he could fall asleep, with a loud bang, the door of the interrogation room was roughly pushed open. The chief judge, Zhang Yu, led the way and slammed the documents onto the table. Don't sleep, let's have a good chat again. Mei Qian. This is too damaging. The physical fitness of an ordinary person is only 5 points, while Mei Qian has reached 9 points, which is close to the limit of the human body. Fatigue interrogation and such matters cannot cause him any trouble. So, this trial at 1:30 a.m. is destined to be fruitless. Even if those questions were flipped over and asked about a flower, Mei Qian's answer was still flawless. For such suspects, Officer Zhang Yu was also convinced. After looking at the watch, there was no further ado, so I stepped forward and untied the handcuffs on the interrogation chair. Where? Should I be released or should I be released on bail pending trial? Seemingly sensing his thoughts, Zhang Yu gave a cold smile and took out the silver bracelet again to put on Mei Qian. Since you refuse to speak, then we have plenty of time to talk in the future. However, the location is the detention center. Before he could finish speaking, several police officers rushed in and escorted them away. Their movements were not as rough as imagined, they were only distributed in front, back, left, and right, which made Mei Qian die hard. When he left the gate of the sub-bureau, Mei Qian knew why these police officers were in such a big battle. At around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, it was not yet daylight outside, but the oncoming flash was particularly glaring. Mr. Mei Qian, it is said that your novels are all adapted from real experiences. May I ask how many ancient tombs did you participate in the excavation? Mei Qian, what do you think? Are you showing off by writing about your experiences and publishing them? Mr. Mei, is most of your current wealth obtained illegally? Mei Qian not only has pain in his eyes, but also in his head. When he was taken into the police car, he looked at the journalist who was still taking photos outside, his mouth twitching. If it weren't for his rationality remaining, he would have to perform a prison break scene now, beating up these damn journalists so much that he doesn't even know them. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Detention Center. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Detention Center. No matter how much Mei Qian vented his anger in his heart, he was quickly transferred to the detention center with the start of the police car. After queuing up for physical examination, taking photos, registering and signing, and submitting personal belongings, etc. The process is cumbersome, but it doesn't take much time, about an hour, and all the procedures are completed. Mei Qian changed into a vest, put on an electronic wristband, and then followed the police into the prison room with a blanket and toiletries, and a pair of big slippers. The space in the monitoring room is not large and the lights are not turned off, so it is very clear to see. On the left side of the entrance is a large bunk, with about 17 or 18 people lying on it. Startled by the sound of opening the door, someone lifted their head and glanced, then withdrew. 2 people were still standing on the ground, and when they saw the police bringing someone in, they were quite enthusiastic. They approached and picked up Mei Qian's bedding in a large plastic basin, helping him place them in a free space. At around 4 or 5 o'clock, Mei Qian was restless all night. Even though he had taken a refreshing cold shower before entering, he couldn't resist his drowsiness. After the police closed the door again, he thanked the 2 people who helped and lay down to sleep. Mei Qian used to sleep lightly, but he was too tired. The piercing bell in his ear automatically filtered out as if he hadn't heard it. In the end, I was still shaken awake by others. When I opened my eyes, there was still a moment of confusion, and it took me a while to realize my current situation. I'm not at home anymore, and I don't know when I can go out. By calculation, after sleeping for less than 2 hours, it is inevitable that my mind will become drowsy. After folding the quilt and queuing up, I flushed my face with cold water, which gave me some energy. Continuing to be idle, it should be time to prepare for breakfast. Ah, that new brother, come over to chat. At this moment, a bald man with a big arm and a round waist suddenly waved at him. Mei Qian glanced and saw that the other person had a big grin on their face, which should be the so-called Big Brother. After some thought, he walked over. Bald but pouting at his feet, the intention was to make him squat down and speak. Mei Qian went straight back to his bunk and sat down. Hey, young man is proud enough. Bald and Cold snorted, with a slightly unkind expression. Several prisoners near him also snorted coldly, and some even stood up and wanted to approach Mei Qian's side. Bang, bang. The teacher knocked on the iron railing and said, "What are you doing?" "It's time for dinner." Everyone then returned to their positions one after another. Mei Qian just pretended not to see it. He is currently feeling down and someone is really bothering him. He doesn't mind moving his muscles and bones. The speed of dining here is very fast, and others can finish it in just over 10 minutes. He didn't have much appetite. He only ate a mantou and drank congee. The remaining mantou was not wasted, and the people ahead of him had to leave. As someone tidied up the dining basin, a young man with pointed lips suddenly approached and handed Mei Qian a piece of paper. Memorize it within 3 days. Abandoning this sentence, like avoiding the plague god, immediately moved away. The paper is densely covered with handwritten supervision regulations. However, he definitely didn't have time to memorize today because he hadn't read the content clearly when 2 police officers called out his name outside the door. He was being interrogated. Mei Qian was taken to the interrogation room and found that the person across from him was still an acquaintance. When he was handcuffed to a chair, Officer Zhang Yu smiled and said, "Mr. Mei doesn't seem to have much energy. He didn't rest well last night, no, this morning." Small matters, as you know, our authors often stay up late and are used to it, Mei Qian replied slowly. After a pause, he asked again, "I just finished asking this morning. What new clues are there?" Zhang Yu looked at the person sitting in the interrogation chair, still smiling and saying, "Mr. Mei doesn't seem to be nervous at all. Such strong psychological qualities are not something that ordinary people can possess." Mei Qian pretended to be surprised and said, "I have a clear conscience. What is there to be nervous about?" Zhang Yu's smile instantly narrowed and he said solemnly, "Mei Qian, are you confident and fearless in assuming that we can't find evidence? Or are you going to break the jar and throw it, intending to take the blame alone?" Mei Qian lifted his eyelids and said, "How could it be? I have been cooperating with you honestly, but you don't believe what I said. What can I do?" Bang! Zhang Yu slammed the table fiercely. "Pay attention to your attitude, haven't you recognized your identity yet?" Cut, Mei Qian sneered and turned his head away. It was another long interrogation, and even boxed meals were not provided. By the time Mei Qian returned to the prison, it was already the afternoon. He really feels annoyed. Who changed? A few questions were repeatedly asked back and forth. It's strange if he's in a good mood. In this situation, it doesn't matter if you're hungry. But he hasn't sat hot under his butt yet. The 2 guards who escorted him before actually called him again. Mei Qian frowned in annoyance, didn't he? Still coming. But the direction of going out was not the interrogation room. After asking, I found out that my own lawyer had arrived. But when he entered the lawyer's meeting room and saw his defense lawyer, he was immediately speechless. This is a criminal case, can you do it? Mei Qian stared at the person across from him. Coincidentally, this is also an acquaintance. Lv Tianlu, a lawyer who once acted as his agent for the copyright of his novels, gradually became friends with him because of our frequent interactions. Whenever we had free time, we would gather together for a drink or something. Big brother, who are you looking down on? Our law firm has always acted as an agent for criminal litigation, and copyright is just a sideline, okay? Isn't that because you gave us too much money? Lv Tianlu also looked speechless, paused, and then said, "It looks like you're doing well." This was purely a joke. Don't mention it, Mei Qian sighed. Cough. Lv Tianlu glanced at the supervisor standing across from him and let out a dry cough. He asked solemnly, "Mei Qian, are you sure you are suspected of stealing and excavating ancient cultural sites and tombs?" "I am innocent, the evidence from the police is just a coincidence." Mei Qian also knew that this was not a place for casual conversation, and he answered calmly. Lv Tianlu asked many more questions. At the request of the other party, Mei Qian shared his experience of being arrested until now. Confirming that he had not been tortured to confess, LV Tianlu nodded reassuringly. The judicial interpretation of the crime of robbing and excavating ancient cultural sites and ancient tombs was further explained. And informed that if the charges are confirmed, Mei Qian may face up to life imprisonment. However, Mei Qian is not worried about these. He admitted that he had never been involved in any illegal or criminal activities, and the evidence from the police was not sufficient. He is confident that he will leave here as a pure white person. In the end, both sides had asked similar questions, and the meeting was coming to an end. Before leaving, Mei Qian suddenly spoke again. "How's Mao Mao doing?" LV Tianlu was taken aback for a moment before answering with a smile, "She's pretty good." Mei Qian turned around and looked at him seriously. After a long time, he frowned and left under the escort of discipline. Mao Mao is his little assistant, the daughter of the landlord. Later on, she had money to buy a new house. Seeing that she didn't have her ideal job after graduating from college, she stayed by her side and became an assistant. In recent years, the two of them got along well, and he always treated each other as his own sister. He always felt that LV Tianlu's expression was not right. When he was arrested, Mao Mao, as an assistant, must have taken on a lot of pressure. However, LV Tianlu said it was okay and there shouldn't be any major problems. However, when the police arrested yesterday, they fired a gun. Shouldn't this girl be scared? It took a long time for a review and a meeting, and without realizing it, time passed. I didn't miss the meal this time, but Mei Qian still has no appetite. Especially when I saw the sticky rice and Chinese cabbage soup, I didn't want to eat them, so I reluctantly put them down after 2 mouthfuls. Until the sound came from the TV on the wall, no one in the monitoring room spoke to him and treated him as a transparent person. Mei Qian is also willing to be clean, which is better. He learned from others by moving a small stool, sitting upright on it, and then looking up to watch news programs on TV. As a seasoned internet worm, I have always had no love for TV programs, and coupled with a bad mood, I forget what was mentioned above. However, in the latter half of the news, a familiar figure appeared in the flashing flash. That unlucky guy was escorted into a police car by several police officers, followed by a group of dedicated journalists who questioned him. Damn it, isn't NEI herself? I don't know whose camera it is, it's really clear. Famous writer Mei Qian has been investigated by the police for suspected tomb theft, and the case is still under investigation. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Rules. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Rules. Mei Qian originally thought that he would pass out watching TV tonight, but he didn't expect that when the news time passed and an advertisement was being broadcasted. The people in the prison room were suddenly divided into several groups, some reading books, playing cards and chess, some gathered together to chat quietly, and some kept staring at the TV. Of course, no one paid any attention to him, but his expression was complex in the occasional glance that swept over him. Mei Qian felt that television was boring, so he temporarily let go of his worries and picked a book to read. When he was picking up the book, the person beside him made a gesture of obstruction, but for some reason, he withdrew and turned his head. Mei Qian glanced coldly, even thinking about it, he didn't see it. He neatly placed his slippers on the ground, crossed his legs against the wall, and didn't flip them over for a moment. Don't be fooled by what he said to the police during the interrogation, but he didn't rest well on the plane yesterday. He only slept for 2 hours for such a long time, and his physical condition is amazing. He is also tired. For the first time entering, I have heard many rumors about prisons and detention centers, and I know that there are many rules and strict schedules here. No one else is asleep, and he doesn't need to feel uncomfortable about such a small matter. He can only endure it. Finally reaching the point of sleep, I took off my vest and fell asleep. Because he lay at the very end, he could hear the sound of someone going to the bathroom at night clearly. I don't know if he has adapted, but Mei Qian slept soundly. The next day, he opened his eyes in the ringtone and glanced at the iSystem. His popularity had already reached over 8 million. After some thought, he held back from the lottery and wanted to see if there were any special rewards for saving 10 million. What if there was a golden legend? After breakfast, Mei Qian was ready for another trial and ended up spending a safe day. Following the crowd, I walked out the back door and performed a set of gymnastics in a small space where I could see the sky through the iron railing. After a while of free movement, this is what we call letting go. In the afternoon, a new person arrived in the supervision room. They were much more obedient than Mei Qian, squatting in front of the bald head honestly, listening to the other person explain the rules. Mei Qian had a good ear, and even if he didn't want to listen, he heard some. Combined with the gossip of others, he finally gained some understanding of his current situation. Originally, this prison was called a transitional warehouse, and the people inside were all entering the detention center for the first time. They came here to adapt to the environment and learn the rules. So here is the strictest: there are requirements for everything you do, and after staying for 1 to 2 weeks, you will be transferred to the regular monitoring room. Of course, there are exceptions as well. The bald one and the other few who sleep by the door are designated by the discipline, and they basically stay until they are sentenced and directly imprisoned. They usually assist the discipline in some management work. People like Mei Qian who are close to the toilet are all newcomers, and it is said that if they come back, they can only make a floor. Newcomers are not required to take on duty for the first 3 days, but can only silently recite the supervision regulations, take cold showers, not talk to others, not read books, and even use the restroom within the specified time. Otherwise, they will be fined to clean the restroom or face the wall. Mei Qian blinked and remembered the book she had read last night and the comfortable hot bath. She continued listening and couldn't help but look at her vest, suddenly realizing. There are 20 people in a prison cell, except for him and the bald man named Xuan wearing a yellow vest, who are considered serious criminals. In fact, according to the seriousness of the crime, they are generally held separately, and few major criminal suspects are locked together with the lesser crimes. But for some reason, 2 catfish came into this warehouse, no wonder others dared not provoke him. There are all kinds of people in the detention center. Those wearing blue vests either leave after a short sentence, or their crimes are not serious. There is hope during the trial period. At this time, they want to get by safely, go home or go to prison, which is much better than this ghost place. Moreover, it is rumored that tomb raiders who eat the food of the dead are mostly ruthless and have conflicts or even fights with such people. The consequences are too serious and unworthy. As for those wearing ankle shackles like Xuan, either their crimes are particularly serious, or they will have to fight here and are currently in the punishment period. It seems I need to be honest, Mei Qian secretly warned himself. It has to be said that humans are really strange creatures. In the next few days, Mei Qian was able to eat and sleep well. I can't think of my own novel, just sigh when I think of it, and even curse in my heart, cursing the system, cursing myself, what was not good to write in the past, and having to write about tomb raids. Is there a judgment this time? Of course, there is also the Southern-style third uncle and Tianxiaba singing from their past lives. Bad luck, this is shameless. Who asked you to copy someone else's settings? Cough. Cough. The 4th day coincides with the weekend, which will be easier, but the so-called free activities are also limited, and the entertainment time is a little longer, not as rigid as in the past. Due to the leader's dissatisfaction with Mei Qian's attitude, others were afraid, and even though 3 days had passed, no one took the initiative to speak to him. Mei Qian will not push forward to sell well, everything will go with the flow. Of course, hygiene still needs to be cleaned up, and everyone has been assigned work after meals. The prison room is usually very clean. Mei Qian looked at a thin young man wearing glasses, kneeling and wiping the floor with a cloth for several consecutive days. What do you say? Wearing white socks doesn't even bring dirt when stepping on them, it's just a reflection. Coincidentally, today the person is still cleaning the floor. Apart from taking turns cleaning the toilet, cleaning the floor is the heaviest task, and even the walls need to be cleaned, which is time-consuming and tiring. This is clearly bullying someone. Mei Qian was only responsible for cleaning the bookshelf and it was quickly completed. Others have already gathered together, either watching TV or playing cards. In the summer, there is only a fan above the head in the house, and people usually sweat when not moving. Many people take off their clothes inside and only wear vests and shorts, which can also feel the heat. And the young man was still working hard, his vest soaked through. Perhaps I couldn't help it at last, as if I had whispered a complaint. Unexpectedly, someone heard me and immediately a big and round-backed person was teasing his head with their hands. Not really a fight, the action is light, but it clearly carries an insult. The young man also became angry, threw the cloth away and stood up, but he had a certain gap in both physique and physique compared to the other party. At this moment, the leader Kuguanto also walked forward with his ankle shackles, pointing at the young man's nose and cursing, "Ning Qi, why are you disobeying the rules? Why don't I go find the discipline?" The young man named Ning Qi's expression changed slightly, he fell silent for a moment, and then picked up a cloth with a short stature. He recoiled on his side, snorted coldly, and walked back. The strong man became even more arrogant, smiling and going to pat Ning Qi's face. Not finished yet, the few who had previously played poker with the strong man also leaned forward, clearly provoking, as if expecting Ning Qi to not dare to take action. In just a moment, Ning Qi's face was flushed with anger. Originally, who was being bullied by this prison? Mei Qian had no intention of taking care of it, as long as it didn't harm himself. But at this point, I couldn't bear to watch any more and immediately made a sound. "Are you guys going to fight? I'm ringing the bell." Coincidentally, he is not far from the alarm and can be easily captured by reaching out. As soon as he said these words, everyone turned their heads and looked over. Mei Qian paid no attention to those fierce gazes and chuckled lightly, "If you don't want everyone to be punished, just calm down." The strong man and others seemed to have a bad temper, but they also had concerns. They glared fiercely at Mei Qian and then sat back on the bed. Perhaps there was a lot of commotion here. Soon, a few guards from the detention center walked in, and everyone stood facing the wall. A disciplinary officer asked Kobold what was the situation. Kuguanto smiled and said everyone was joking. I asked Ning Qi again, but he hung his head and didn't mention being bullied. As the only serious criminal, Mei Qian finally felt the focus of attention. Standing with his hands on the wall and being repeatedly searched made him extremely uncomfortable. A few disciplinary officers didn't want to be unclean on the weekend, didn't notice any abnormalities, and in the end, it turned into a trivial matter. After giving a few warnings, they went out. Mei Qian continued reading novels, and after some time, someone came to his side. Glancing around, it was Ning Qi who was still holding a book in his hand. "Thank you first." I just don't want you to cause trouble." Mei Qian continued to stare at the page of the book and said lightly, "I still want to buy some snacks to eat. In the detention center, I don't have human rights or freedom. I don't eat well. I may have eggs or fat meat at noon. The rest of the time is cabbage, tofu, mantou porridge. It tastes very bad. It's either salty or weak. I heard that in a few days, you can spend money to buy stir-fry and snacks, but if someone fights, the entire prison can only eat 1 month's worth of pig food. So, he's really just craving. Anyway, I have to thank you, otherwise I'll be in big trouble." Ning Qi wasn't scared away by his indifference, but instead raised the thick book in Yang's hand and asked, "Are you really Mei Qian, the writer who wrote this book?" Upon closer inspection, Mei Qian realized that it was the Tomb Raider diary that had been completely altered by him. "Are you still a reader?" Nodding, Ning Qi immediately showed an excited expression and said, "Since you've all come in, so what's written in the novel is true." Mei Qian is speechless. Do even readers think I am a tomb robber? He didn't want to explain anymore, but at least he was a reader and hadn't talked to anyone for a few days. After thinking about it, he decided to close the book and chatted with Ning Qi without a word. Ning Qi claimed to have been tricked by his classmates into selling fake cigarettes online before coming in. It seems that I don't want to talk too much about myself, nor do I mention how I offended the boss. I only claim that I particularly enjoy reading Tomb Raider Diary, and start asking Mei Qian about the characters in the novel and tomb raids. Because when it comes to tomb raiding, it is inevitable to recall his own misfortune, so Mei Qian showed little interest. Ning Qi was very observant, so he changed the topic and whispered about the gossip he heard after entering the detention center. However, this chat is destined to not last long, and there are two names named Mei Qian who are being disciplined. It turns out that lawyer LV Tianlu has arrived. In the meeting room, Mei Qian heard some bad news from LV Tianlu's mouth. Although the evidence from the police is currently insufficient to convict him, the case is too involving, and during the period of public opinion fermentation, his application for bail pending trial was rejected. LV Tianlu also asked him to prepare for staying in the detention center for a long time. The police may extend the investigation and detention period due to the complexity of the case. In the end, comfort him not to give up hope, and people outside will do their best to help him, so that he can obtain freedom as soon as possible. Mei Qian remained silent for a long time. When he was taken back, the air pressure around him was extremely low, and he was in a bad mood at first glance. He read a book, causing people around him to become cautious, even turning down the sound of the TV. Ning Qi didn't dare to approach, so he found a corner to shrink down. However, Koguangto's face was filled with a sense of schadenfreude. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Refusal, Part 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Refusal, Part 1. In the afternoon, Mei Qian received a few pieces of clothes brought by his assistant Mao Mao. After sleeping in at night, he felt that his mood had improved a lot. On the fifth day, there was another interrogation, which lasted for a long time. Facing the police, Mei Qian has no sense of guilt of other suspect. Upon careful examination, the current police should have neither witnesses of his involvement in tomb raids nor evidence of his involvement in selling antiques. Every penny of his wealth has a clear and traceable source, and he pays taxes on time without any criminal records. As for not being able to explain his background and life trajectory a few years ago, even an outsider in the law can see that this alone is not enough to convict him. The only thing I'm afraid of is being tricked by the system. No, I've already been tricked because of that pottery fox. Fortunately, the police probably don't have any other evidence either. He often went to the Li family circle last year, which is traceable. It's normal for him to buy things inside. As for why it collided with the cultural relics in the Tang tomb, what does it have to do with him? Moreover, there are many identical things in the world. How can you be sure that the fox was stolen from the tomb of the Tang dynasty in western Shaanxi, but it can't be inherited by others? This did not go through several interrogations, especially in the morning when the other party was still tossing and turning over just a few questions, without any threat. It instantly gave him more confidence. It's not without new clues. Zhang Yu brought a lot of information about ancient tombs this time, which seems to have many similarities with the novels published by Mei Qian. He may want to use these to pry open his mouth. Helplessly, he was easily rebuked by Mei Qian for saying, in ancient times, tombs all followed the theory of feng shui, and there were many similarities. Watch more archaeological documentaries, and anyone can write. Then, Mei Qian advised the other party not to waste their efforts. Continuing the investigation would only consume national resources and could not convict him. However, no one listened to the truth, and Zhang Yu's face remained calm. The recorder beside him glared fiercely at Mei Qian several times. Mei Qian is also very helpless. If we look at it from a different perspective, it would be like some kind of movie routine. You know the person in front of you is a criminal, but you can't prove it. Are you angry? Of course, Mei Qian is not a criminal at all. It's just that I've written too many novels, and the brain circuits are different from those of normal people. Cough. At noon, the detention center provided boxed meals with the same specifications as Officer Zhang Yu and others, which were quite delicious. During his rest, Zhang Yu happily handed over his cigarette and smoked, completely lacking the seriousness and solemnity he had before. Mei Qian refused to come, and in no time, the interrogation room became shrouded in smoke. Continuing in the afternoon, compared to the previous unease, Mei Qian noticeably relaxed a bit. But just as he picked up the mineral water bottle and prepared to take a sip of water, Zhang Yu suddenly asked, "Is your hometown in Dongshan?" Despite maintaining vigilance in his heart, Mei Qian was still stunned by this question. Zhang Yu smiled slightly and continued to ask. "You may not even have a real name now. Where was your past? Home? Parents? Brothers and sisters? Did you abandon them after saying that? Don't feel lonely during the holidays. Don't want to be reunited with them. Even if you don't have relatives, there should be some friends and playmates. I don't believe that when a person comes to the world, there will be few bosom friends. If so, it would be too sad." Mei Qian put down the bottle, lowered his head for a while, and then replied without any hesitation, "I forgot." Without further questioning, Zhang Yu leaned back in the chair and met Mei Qian's 4 eyes. The two of them stared at each other like this, and the interrogation room fell into a long silence. Zhang Yu was destined to achieve nothing, because Mei Qian could not reveal that he was a traveler and possessed the secrets of the system. But it can also be said that there was no winner in this verbal confrontation. After being handcuffed, Mei Qian re-entered the prison. Inside, there was cleaning again, and strangely enough, there was almost a conflict yesterday, and Ning Qi was still cleaning the floor. He only glanced and didn't feel in the mood to stand out for others today. "Yo, coming back from the hallway is like changing people. Shouldn't you say something that shouldn't be said? The prospects are not good, are they?" In this prison, only Kuguanto has the qualifications and motivation to speak so strangely. Mei Qian turned coldly to the other person and suppressed his throat, saying, "Get lost." He just didn't give Kuguanto the nickname when he came in on the first day. He wasn't as enthusiastic and respectful as others. "But I have followed all the rules that should be followed, and I am still honest and low-key. To be honest, there is no major conflict between the two. The bad thing was that he helped Ning Qi yesterday, which in Mei Qian's view avoided a dispute and did not punish everyone in the prison." In Kuguanto's eyes, Mei Qian was challenging authority in trying to stand out from him. Arrange Ning Qi to clean the floor just to show the other party. He feels like he has been helping to discipline and manage for so long, without any credit or hard work, and can't even manage a newcomer. Mei Qian was too careful and petty to care about this. He just wanted to spend these difficult days quietly. The detention center changed warehouses frequently, and when it came to other cells, who knew who? Someone came to touch the mold, while Kuguanto had not yet made a sound. However, someone else shouted, "You're quite crazy." It was the first strong man to bully Ning Qi yesterday. And before he finished speaking, several blue vests beside him also stood up. "You don't need to be taught by your buddies." Mei Qian's short and thick fingers were only a few centimeters away from the tip of his nose. As he looked at the gradually approaching people, his heart was filled with anger. With a lift of his foot, the strong man's nearly 200-pound body flew out. A series of noises followed, leaving him empty in front of him. In an instant, the provocative blue vests were kicked back onto his bunk by him. "I can't use the 8 Extremes fist to deal with a few ordinary people. It doesn't exert much force, it's just a clever move, but in fact, it doesn't cause much harm. But to ordinary people, it's simply unbelievable." Glancing coldly at Kuguanto with his big mouth open, he moved his feet and the other person's nose was bleeding profusely, with the marks of his big slippers on his face. After a brief silence in the monitoring room, the sounds of pain and inhalation kept coming and going. Mei Qian's veins were bulging on his forehead, feeling extremely restless. I always think that I am a relatively introverted person, but when facing immense pressure, it is actually difficult to control one's emotions. Being treated as a criminal and losing his freedom and rights, the days of oppression have already reached a critical point. The things he carefully buried in his heart are being let out and then provoked. Mei Qian needed to vent especially at this moment, but he still held his sanity and kicked towards the wall on his side with all his might. With a loud bang, dust fell and a shallow pit appeared on the wall. The piercing alarm bell rang loudly, and the discipline came very quickly, with more than 10 people holding electric batons rushing in. Hula, whether it was the blue vest that had previously been holding onto his stomach and shouting pain, or the nosebleeds of Kuguanto, or a bunch of idle people picking up their chin, all reacted and quickly ran down the big bunk, squatting facing the wall. At this moment, Mei Qian, who was barefoot, also calmed down, blinked, and finally sighed helplessly. He also crouched down with his head in his hands. A few square meters of independent space, luxurious soft decoration, and advanced bed-free design. Eliminate light pollution, use environmentally friendly squatting toilets, provide 24-hour monitoring and care, and maintain a clean and natural noise environment. This is the famous confinement room. Mei Qian certainly has no right to nitpick, he can only drag his ankle shackles and walk in. Doing the wrong venting in the wrong place resulted in 10 days of confinement. After the door closed, he groped and sat down on the only concrete platform. Mei Qian deposited his mind in the system warehouse and searched for useful things. I should be grateful that before setting off for Nanyun, I had planned to go to the wilderness for wind harvesting and had prepared a lot of things in the warehouse. This includes cookies, spicy chocolate bars, beer drinks, mineral water. Afraid of getting lost. Tablet game console and several high-power banks. Afraid of boredom. The remaining space only contains some tents, compasses, and some things that were drawn from the lottery but are not convenient to place outside. After thinking for a moment, he turned around, avoided the camera as much as possible, and lowered his body. His handcuffed hands pressed against his stomach, spraying wildly at himself. The mosquitoes here are too enthusiastic, he just wants to make himself comfortable. Next, sit back against the wall and continue reading the unfinished novel from last time. In the past, when reading stories, I used to not take it seriously and thought that having a phone would be enough if I moved to a locked room. It wasn't a big deal, but in real life, this kind of oppression is hard to express. I only see light for half an hour every day, and spend the rest of my time in a dark environment. I can only be grateful that I don't have claustrophobia anymore. This is still the premise that he can unconsciously use his tablet in the space to read novels and watch TV dramas to pass the time. After less than half a day, he began to miss the unfriendly prison room. I don't know how long it has been, but finally someone brought food over. Previously, it was said that the food in the detention center was unpleasant, and even more so in the confinement room. A mantou and a bowl of soup are not provided with chopsticks and spoons. If you are hungry, you will not die. He actually has a lot of delicious food, but he can't take it out, so there's no place to reason. After putting the bowl away, he looked at the squatting toilet again, pondering whether to continue, fearing that the indoor smell would be strong. There was no way out. After the second meal delivery, he secretly put a small pill into mantou and swallowed it. Pai Gu Dan, which can last for 3 days with just one pill, is the best companion for wilderness travel, getting lost, fighting, and being locked up. I forgot which time I pulled out a bottle, he could beat more than 10 people. Of course, every time we eat, we still have to act like this. In fact, the broken mantou has been stored in the warehouse. After all, no one can think that he is on hunger strike. After a few days of confusion, Mei Qian began to worry again. Although reading a novel can distract one's energy, the suppression of the overall environment is still unavoidable. Moreover, the tablet will soon run out of battery, and no matter how many power banks there are, they cannot withstand frequent use. So he turned his gaze to the lottery system. Perhaps the popularity of the news has not diminished, or perhaps there are still people hyping up his arrest, and his popularity has unknowingly exceeded 10 million. But there was no golden lottery, but it's good to have 10 special draws, at least there are more opportunities. Hopefully, you can draw useful skills or items. He now wants to come up with a secret script or skill such as internal mental cultivation or Buddhist meditation, so that he can sit cross-legged and forget himself. He can stay in the small black room for as long as he wants, and when others ask him, he can meditate and comprehend the Tao, which is full of power. It's not just a dream. He feels like he has a natural talent and will draw whatever skill he wants several times. Of course, it is also possible that the system has a certain level of intelligence but cannot communicate. Without turning back the arrow, after drawing de Huan Dan, who was recovering from his injuries, he was about to try his luck again when the door to the confinement room was opened. The punishment was temporarily suspended, and someone came to see him. Mei Qian thought it was Zhang Yu who was being interrogated again, but he didn't expect that not only the police but also representatives from the Archaeological Bureau would be present this time. P.S. The above and previous chapters on detention centers are all fabricated by the author and should not be linked to reality. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Refusal, Part 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Refusal, Part 2. After coming out of the confinement room without even having time to tidy up, Mei Qian was taken directly to the director's office. At this moment, 6 or 7 people inside were gathered in front of the computer, pointing and whispering at the surveillance records inside without stopping. Officer Zhang Yu shook his mouse with a serious expression, and several scenes of Mei Qian stepping out in the video were repeatedly played. After a long time, he remained calm in his voice and said, "Who would have thought that Mei Qian would be a dangerous person to watch, a writer with such literary skills? So." He turned his head to the middle-aged man wearing golden glasses next to him and advised, "Captain Yang, I personally oppose your archaeological team's proposal. Mei Qian wants to escape, but there may not be many people who can stop him. What if there is an accident in between? Although you have the protection of our police, it is difficult to ensure your personal safety if the other party catches you off guard. Even if you wear a ring gear, I am not at ease. The excavation work has come to a standstill, and we are also anxious here." Captain Yang pushed his glasses and a worried expression flashed on his face. "If we can't enter, we won't know the damage to the cultural relics inside. If Mei Qian can provide help, the progress will definitely be faster. I know there must be some consideration since it was approved by the higher authorities, but I reserve my opinion. Moreover, Mei Qian still does not admit to having stolen an ancient tomb. I estimate." Zhang Yu sighed and shook his head, wanting to persuade again. At this moment, a report came from outside the door, and the director of the detention center responded. The sound of iron chains made Mei Qian stroll in. After a brief introduction by the director, everyone took their seats one by one. However, Mei Qian sat far away on a bench against the wall, while the rest of them were on a soft sofa, separated by a coffee table and a few meters away, making a clear distinction. But Captain Yang kept standing, waiting for Mei Qian to sit down and go straight to the topic, explaining his purpose. Originally, he was the deputy team leader responsible for archaeological excavation at the Dongshan Warring States tomb. Last month's earthquake, an ancient tomb site was discovered in Xinglin Mountain, Dongshan Province. According to the survey, the ancient tomb should belong to the spring and autumn period and the Warring States period. However, the earthquake only exposed astonishingly large accompanying burial pits, and the main tomb remains uncertain to this day. The progress has been significantly delayed. So, I came this time to ask Mr. Mei if there are any clues to provide since he is so familiar with this ancient tomb. Unconsciously, Captain Yang had already walked up to Mei Qian and bent down to hand over a stack of photo materials. Mei Qian remained silent for a while before holding it in his hand, but didn't even look at it. Instead, he looked up at the other person and said, "How do you think I'm familiar with that Warring States tomb because I discovered something called a corpse tomb?" "Then you're asking the wrong person. I'm just a stinky writer, and I don't know anything about ancient tombs. The location of the ancient tomb, the scenery, and even the layout of the burial room are exactly the same as those described in your novel. How could you not understand? Since they are exactly the same, why do you look for them according to the novel? Why ask me?" Mei Qian is tired of communicating with people who like to talk from a high position. "There are still some differences, and we can temporarily bring you into the archaeological team, which is also beneficial for you. Based on your contribution, you will receive corresponding opportunities for commutation," Captain Yang said in a comforting tone. "Sorry, I'm just a suspect at present, not a criminal, and commutation is of great use to me." Mei Qian raised his eyebrows. He didn't believe that there were no capable people in the archaeological team. Even if there were no capable people, it would be difficult for them to find real tomb robbers. Isn't it easier to ask oneself? Since no one else can do it, leaving him alone as a writer is purely a waste of effort. And it's okay if we can't find the main tomb. If we do find it, wouldn't it further solidify the identity of the tomb robber? Effortless and not pleasing, only fools go. With this in mind, he glanced at Zhang Yu, who was silent across from him, and said solemnly, just to emphasize it again, "I don't know how to deal with tomb raids or feng shui. It's useless for you to come to me. Mei Qian, we have discovered several stolen caves in this burial pit, and there has been an earthquake before. It is urgent to protect and excavate the ancient tomb. If you can provide useful clues, and even personally help us find the ancient tomb, this is a great achievement, which is beneficial to both you and our archaeological bureau. We hope you don't take it lightly and seize this rare opportunity." Captain Yang frowned and his voice grew louder. Mei Qian stuffed the stack of information back into the other person, then lowered his head. No matter what others said, he only closed his eyes and didn't speak again. Officer Zhang Yu still invited others out and said he wanted to stay to persuade them. "Come and sit down." Only Zhang Yu and the recorder who glared at Mei Qian were left indoors. He stepped forward and picked up Mei Qian, took him to the sofa, and when he sat down, he voluntarily handed him a cigarette. After lighting it, he smiled and asked, "How have you been lately?" "It's okay, quite clean." Mei Qian greedily took a big puff. He wasn't a big smoker, but after all, he hadn't touched it for several days, which was strange. Hitting someone will definitely result in punishment. This is a rule, and no one can do anything about it. Zhang Yu clearly knew his situation and lit cigarettes for himself and his companions, then said, "But this opportunity is good. I think you should cooperate." "Do you think I'm not cooperative enough?" Mei Qian raised his hands, revealed his handcuffs, and smiled. "To be honest, this is not a place for people to stay. There is no freedom, no human rights, and there are many rules and regulations regarding food that are difficult to eat. When entering or exiting, one must shout a report, and it's rare to smoke when the wind blows. A few people even need to smoke a single cigarette. I have to squat while someone is sitting, which is too disrespectful." Mei Qian extinguished his cigarette butt and sighed deeply, "I'm counting my days on my fingers now. I really want to go outside and breathe some fresh air, but what Captain Yang requested cannot be achieved. Perhaps you can force me to identify the scene, but I'm not a tomb robber and there won't be any results." Zhang Yu saw that he had finished smoking and pulled out another cigarette as a gesture. He nodded before handing it over and lighting it up, saying, "Then I won't advise you either. But you're being so stubborn, which not only consumes our energy but also wastes our time. Why don't you tell us everything you know? We'll handle the case quickly here, and you'll be able to convict earlier. Prison is much more comfortable than here. In your eyes, I am a criminal, but I believe I will walk out of this door for nothing. Mei Qian pouted, looking at it from a different perspective. At least this place should be on time, with light food. In a while, I estimate that all the bad habits I left behind when I stayed up late will be cured. It's also good to live there. Anyway, I have time and can afford to accompany you. Your investigative agency has money and can also afford to compensate. This is a rare experience. Perhaps after going out, I will write a novel based on my own experience, called The Killer's Diary. You won't arrest me again, will you? Zhang Yu was taken aback by the words and suddenly glanced at the computer in the distance. He laughed again and said, "That's not necessarily." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Accidents. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Accidents. Mei Qian didn't let up, and the archaeological team came back without success. As he said, he was a suspect, not a criminal. Not to mention how cumbersome the formalities were when he took the detainees out. When Mei Qian was bitten to death and didn't cooperate, they couldn't help it. And Mei Qian was not taken back to the confinement room. With his application, the discipline took him to the bathroom. Well, before taking a shower, I even volunteered to shave my head. After all, I will have to stay in the confinement room for a few more days. There is no faucet there, so I can't even wash my hair with cold water. My head will itch badly. It's not as refreshing and clean as this. Finally, I have the appearance of a criminal. He thought to himself with self-deprecation. A total of 10 days of confinement quickly passed, and after conducting some inspections and in-depth discussions on discipline, Mei Qian finally broke free from his shackles and was assigned to a regular prison cell. The new boss is good and has given him a good position on the big shop. The other roommates were also enthusiastic and kind, even the 2 shackled convicts were polite to him. There has never been a tragic incident ere the legendary newcomer was taught the rules. Moreover, there were acquaintances inside, and Ning Qi, whom he knew in the transitional cell, was also present. However, on the first day, Mei Qian didn't show much smile. She sat cross against the wall, sometimes closing her eyes and bowing her head, sometimes staring blankly at her head. Others thought that he had just left the confinement room and was in a poor mental state, so they didn't ask much and were even more hesitant to comfort him. They didn't know, Mei Qian lowered his head and was inspecting the new things in the warehouse. Looking up, I doubted my life by looking up at a few new skills that appeared on the attribute panel. Actually, his state has been going on for several days. 100-year black donkey hoof X5. A glutinous rice product made from glutinous rice, resembling a donkey's hoof, with the blessing of Mao Shan's secret technique, it is the best magic weapon for restraining corpses. Transforming spirit seal. Transforming resentment into spirit, it can protect the common people, and after carrying it, snakes and insects are harmless, avoiding ghosts and gods. Why don't you give me a hair mound seal, blessed by the heavenly officials and without any taboos? It's more like a tomb thief holding it in your hand. It's not his fault for being so malicious. Besides giving him a bottle of De Huan Dan in the lottery system, it's normal. After that, it's like a twitch. What kind of hell are all these things coming out? I couldn't help but call up the panel again. Name. Mei Qian. Physical fitness. 9, human limit is 10, skills. Cooking, beginner, singing, intermediate, fighting, advanced, driving, intermediate, playing musical instruments, intermediate, baji fist, advanced, dangerous intuition, beginner, skeleton shrinking, beginner, light body technique, beginner, dragon hunting, beginner, mechanism breaking, beginner, and original wish crossing xiangong, beginner. Warehouse space. 2 cubic meters, note. Almost full, please clean up in a timely manner. Popularity value. 76.53 points among these newly added skills, not to mention the lightness technique and danger intuition, they are still very useful. As for the original wish to cross the xiangong, which is an internal mental skill of the Buddhist sect. Without a tablet, he relied on it to get through the remaining days of confinement. The techniques of searching for dragons, cracking mechanisms, and shrinking bones can't be justified anymore. Hey, adding a black donkey hoof and a spirit-transforming seal is indeed a punishment. He touched his bald head with an ominous feeling that he was getting further and further away from a stable life. It has to be said that ordinary detention rooms have fewer rules than transitional detention rooms, which is relatively more comfortable. In the following days, apart from dealing with Zhang Yu's interrogation, I basically stayed in the prison room. In just 2 or 3 days, I got to know my roommates and was surprised to find that they were all very kind people. They spoke well and treated people warmly. For example, when cleaning, there will always be someone to help, especially Mei Qian, who quickly completes his own tasks and takes the initiative to take on the responsibility. Because of his mistake, even if Mao Mao had saved enough money in his account, he couldn't buy snacks and daily necessities, but he wasn't upset. Someone always buys it for him, willing to share instant noodles and spicy strips with him, and there is never a shortage of cigarettes during the holiday season. Sometimes he felt that his treatment was similar to that of the executed prisoner wearing shackles and in need of care, and he felt a bit embarrassed. It is worth mentioning that when it was his turn to work at night, his roommate was also very polite. When he woke up, he gently gave him a horse, and no matter how much older he was, he respectfully called him Big Brother. Oh, Qian Gu, have a chicken leg. It's another weekend. After dinner, everyone has their own entertainment. Mei Qian dug out his collection and leaned in with a thud. Mei Qian glanced at the vacuum-packed chicken legs, which cost around 7 or 8 yuan each, and were naturally not very big. He took it over, tore open the packaging, tore off a small piece, and returned the rest. Thank you, I'll treat you when I buy it. Counting the days, a month is almost over, and he probably won't be able to go out either, but he can still buy things and show kindness at that time. Remember those who have been given things in the prison. Mei Qian chuckled and then walked towards another person. In the end, 2 bags of 100g chicken legs were divided among 12 people. In fact, they only had a taste, but everyone was quite happy eating. If we were to change places, I'm afraid everyone in the prison wouldn't be interested in this thing. It's strange that the monthly amount of money you can buy here is fixed, and the amount you can buy is also limited. Therefore, you can only exchange things or share them together, which can be considered a pleasure in the face of hardship. Mei Qian has a strong adaptability and can now watch TV for half a day, even though he is currently airing the least favorite news program in the past. He felt that if he stayed here again, he would be disconnected from the outside world. Qian Gu, what's good about TV? Can you tell us about the stories in your tomb raiding novels? Also, why are you so amazing that you can kick a wall through with just 1 foot? Mei Qian sat over with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone nearby turned their heads around, followed by a chorus of agreement. Mei Qian glanced at Mei Qian and realized that tomb raiding novels were definitely not allowed to be told. If one were to boast too much and the people here would try to force themselves to make contributions, it would be purely causing trouble for themselves. However, there is nothing to hide about his kung fu, and he even has some insights into it. After all, the system only draws basic skills, and to improve them, one needs to practice hard. Without his physique, others would only know how to strengthen the body at most. With a dry cough, he turned his body towards the crowd, ready to engage in a good conversation. Everyone seemed very interested and came together one after another. Before Mei Qian could speak, he suddenly frowned and made a silent gesture, quickly turning his head back to the TV on the wall. I saw that the host on TV lowered his head to read the manuscript and said solemnly, "Now there is a news that an accident occurred in the Warring States period ancient tomb being excavated by the Dongshan Provincial Archaeological Team. Due to unknown reasons, a large number of mountains collapsed and some people were trapped. Specifically." End of this chapter. Chapter 10. On the Road. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 On the road. A disaster occurred at the archaeological site and some archaeologists were trapped. After the news program, the TV station also made a special report on it, and some reporters have rushed to the site for real-time live broadcasting. Emergency rescue has already begun, and the whereabouts of the missing persons have not yet been found. Mei Qian even saw an acquaintance in the picture, Captain Yang, who didn't speak very politely. This news naturally caught the attention of the entire prison, and no one brought up the topic of kung fu again. Some people are discussing how to self-rescue in the face of such a mountain disaster. One of their roommates used to be a firefighter and really popularized a lot of knowledge, and everyone feels that they have benefited greatly. Then he sighed incessantly, knowing that disasters such as mountain collapses would happen, and the trapped people would be more or less unlucky. Whether as criminals or ordinary people, there are only a few who completely destroy human nature, and everyone still has some sympathy. Mei Qian was also sighing, not sure if this had anything to do with the archaeological team, but it was just a sigh. Because even if he accepts the invitation from the archaeological team, what a criminal says doesn't hold much weight, and furthermore, he really can't help. But it seems that some people don't think so. Can you tell me how to conduct on-site identification for a case where the evidence is not yet sufficient to qualify? On the third day of the collapse accident in Xinglin Mountain, sitting in the escort car, Mei Qian looked coldly at Zhang Yu across from him and said, "I have always believed in the fairness of the law and trusted you. As a result, you have disappointed me. You're doing something special, and we can't do anything about the requirements above," Zhang Yu explained with a hint of unease on his face. "This is not a necessary procedure, everything needs evidence to speak. When we get there, we won't force you, it's all up to you to make your own decisions." He then returned to a smiling posture and said, "Since everything has already come out, let's take it easy." Mei Qian looked at the two armed special police officers guarding the back door and asked in a low voice, "I said I can't handle feng shui anymore. What's the use of going there? Do you still remember Captain Yang whom you met before?" Zhang Yu lowered his voice and said, "Don't look like he's the deputy captain. In fact, the entire excavation work was led by him, and the chief captain was just a name, but there hasn't been much progress. He later invited famous domestic archaeologists and tomb robbers into the site, but to no avail." At this point, Zhang Yu paused for a moment and then increased his tone. "It is said that I pulled you out this time as a result of negotiations between the Xia State Archaeology Bureau and the police department." He made a hesitant expression and immediately changed the topic. "It's probably noon when we arrive at the boundary of Dongshan. Do you want anything to eat? It's my treat. Has it been over 20 days without any progress?" Upon hearing this, Mei Qian suddenly remembered the scene from the news a few days ago. Unlike the first time he was full of energy and commanding, Captain Yang, who was seen on TV with a disheveled face and a dejected expression when faced with questioning from reporters, was quite lacking in spirit. Captain Yang's background is definitely not simple. Maybe this collapse is related to his poor command. He treated me as the last straw to save his life, knowing that it was extremely rare for Zhang Yu to tell himself so much. He didn't bother about it and instead asked, "When will my case end? If it's not good enough, you can get me a bail pending trial." "Sorry, there is discipline, but I really can't say it." Zhang Yu shook his head and thought for a moment. He released Mei Qian's hands from the railing and opened the handcuffs on one side, handcuffed them to the seat before handing over a cigarette. "Don't worry, we will definitely not wrongly accuse a good person." "I won't let a bad person go either," interjected Li Chen, who was tinkering with the camera on the side. "Well said." Zhang Yu glanced at his disciple who had been serving as his recorder and praised. "Your police officers' salaries are not low, right? Can't you make some good cigarettes?" "You're too aggressive," Mei Qian said with disdain, but reached out and lit the cigarette using the light on the other person's lighter. "That little money needs to be saved up to get married." Li Chen suddenly muttered again. Staring at his disciple, Zhang Yu couldn't help but say, "Unlike you, a great writer, I haven't paid off my mortgage yet, so I have to be frugal. That's right, the houses in the summer capital are indeed too expensive. Mei Qian also sighed. Not only the housing prices were high, but the rent was also high. When he first arrived, even with compensation, he really had a tough time. Now I've finally made it through, If it weren't for this unfortunate incident, it would have been even better. His seat had no armrests, but it was very long, like a sofa with a backrest. He turned around, put his legs up, and then leaned against the cold iron railing, feeling comfortable. Zhang Yu sighed slightly when he saw his relaxed appearance. At this point, he himself was already skeptical about whether Mei Qian was really involved in the crime. Judging solely from the words and actions of the other party in front of the police, it doesn't seem like they have done anything wrong. The key point of the case lies in the trajectory of Mei Qian's actions 4 years ago, but unfortunately, the other party suffered from amnesia and could not provide any clues. And ancient tombs are all located in wild mountains, finding a witness is even more difficult than climbing to the sky. He participated in the investigation of the case from beginning to end. Their task force was busy for over 4 months, traveling to more than 10 provinces and cities. Working overtime became the norm, but they couldn't find enough evidence to convict them. Only that Fox Antique had an incomplete evidence chain, so they couldn't sue. But the public opinion triggered by this case is too great, and it is even more under the supervision of the department. The pressure on their handling agencies is also very high, and they cannot easily give up. They can only be cautious and cautious. The final outcome depends on whether there is a breakthrough in the remaining time. Modern highways extend in all directions and have very convenient transportation. When we arrived at a service area in Dongshan, we happened to have lunch. A police car and a prisoner's car, a total of 9 people sat around a table, each with a bowl of braised noodles, 4 small dishes in the middle, and 2 large bottles of cola. It doesn't seem like it cost much, but Zhang Yu still asked the boss for the invoice and probably will reimburse it when he goes back. I feel embarrassed, so he turned around and bought 2 boxes of good cigarettes, which he distributed in the car. However, Mei Qian was not very interested and sat back in his seat, smoking and daydreaming. Others also understood, especially Li Chen, who looked at him with some sympathy in his eyes. This high-speed car is coming and going, so there are many people resting and eating in the service area. Although Mei Qian knows he has a high popularity now, he really didn't expect to meet fans to follow him after every meal. Sitting back in the car, Mei Qian glanced at the screen of Li Chen's phone that he had specially placed in front of him. Not to mention, the person had added a beauty effect, which looked much more handsome than his actual image. Of course, the background sound was not just a bleakeru, puff. It's really that Mei Qian. I've kept videos of him singing until now, but I didn't expect to change his hairstyle. This eru is quite suitable for him. I don't know if he picked up soap in prison. Done, is this the one who came out to identify the scene? Is the ending of his book Dao Zai hopeless? If it is a general tomb robbery, with a maximum of 10 years, it should be included in the sale of cultural relics. If the circumstances are severe, it may be indefinite, not afraid, at least not the death penalty. There is still hope in this life. Mei Qian. Thank you very much. Not long after the car restarted, Mei Qian suddenly realized that his popularity had started to rise significantly again. No need to think, it must be thanks to those fans. After getting off the highway, I walked a section of cement road first, and then came a pure dirt road. It was extremely muddy and bumpy, and the car swayed and slowed down a lot. It wasn't until evening that I finally arrived at my destination. Xinglin Mountain. Under the illumination of searchlights, the surroundings resemble a large construction site, with troops guarding the perimeter. Archaeologists and search and rescue personnel wearing rescue suits are busy, coming and going in a hurry. Even the TV station's interview car can be seen parked on the mountain road. What's the situation? Zhang Yu grabbed a middle-aged man wearing glasses and said, "Didn't it mean that the rescue work has ended and all the missing people have been found?" "Oh my, another earthquake happened this afternoon, and Professor Mao and his daughter, who came from the summer capital, went missing again." Zhang Yu let go of the other person and frowned tightly, taking out his phone. "Leader, there has been another earthquake in Xinglin Mountain, and some people are missing. I request to take the suspect back. This place is too dangerous." "Well, okay, let me tell the other person." After he hung up the phone, he instructed the person behind him, "Be sure to pay attention to safety later." After speaking, he thought for a moment and squatted down to remove the chain from Mei Qian's feet. He also took off a handcuff and handcuffed the other person to himself. This led everyone towards the tent ahead. Sure enough, I saw Captain Yang from a distance, who was in a state of anxiety. He was shouting something at a group of rescue workers because the surroundings were chaotic and nothing could be heard. Seeing the other party wave their hand, everyone scattered and ran out. When he turned his head, he happened to see Zhang Yu and Mei Qian, with a hint of joy on his face. He ran over and said, "Mr. Mei, we finally waited for you." Without saying a word, Zhang Yu's arms suddenly exerted force, pulling Mei Qian back a step and welcoming him up. "I'm sorry, Captain Yang. Our police have an obligation to ensure the personal safety of the suspect. It's too dangerous here, and our captain has allowed us to return immediately," he said. Captain Yang showed a hint of embarrassment on his face and said, "Well, I'll call you again to ask in detail. Can you wait a moment?" Zhang Yu hesitated for a moment and could only nod. So, a few people stood still, waiting for each other to communicate with their superiors. This is really a move. If it weren't for someone surnamed Yang, they would definitely have exploded. I'm afraid so many things wouldn't have happened. If you ask me, this excavation should be stopped. Only the accompanying tomb has a stolen cave, but the main tomb has not. Does this not mean that the main tomb has not been stolen? Sealing is not better, he insists on finding the ancient tomb. How many accidents have happened? Hi, I heard he has been wanting to take another step forward. What a great achievement is a spring and autumn and warring states period tomb. He is willing to give up. If he can't find it again, he probably needs to dig a mountain and dig a roof. This time, Professor Mao is missing. He can't find the ancient tomb anymore. Let's see who can hold it. Listening to the whispered conversation between two archaeologists not far away, Mei Qian and Zhang Yu couldn't help but glance at each other. It seems that my previous guess was correct. I am really the last straw that Captain Yang can use to save his life. Mei Qian was muttering in his heart when he suddenly caught a glimpse of a female journalist passing by with a cameraman. He quickly turned his head away, not wanting the other person to pay attention to him. Although it's a bit unfair to say that, when something goes wrong here, his popularity skyrocketed. If it appeared in the news, perhaps it could have skyrocketed even further. But after passing through the service area, he had no intention of riding on the heat anymore. He didn't want to be the object of ridicule on the internet, even if this kind of thing was unavoidable. Seeking tickets, seeking various types of tickets. End of this chapter.